That's you.
Wait a minute, Josh. Fine. Now, all right. Well, at least there'll be something to cue from when I'm editing it. All right. Welcome back to Neek the Pull List Podcast, the show where Josh and I talk about the comics we bought the past 2 weeks. We haven't bought this much this week, have we, Josh?
No, I think I bought like one issue, one singular issue this week, and like 3 last week.
That's all right. All right, well, as we told you in the last episode, the Superman episode, this is the second of a 2-part series for Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. The first episode, you heard us talk about the glory and how much we love Superman. Well, this show, we're going to tell you about how much more we care about the Dark Knight, the Batman himself. And along with us today is a friend of mine, Brennan Smith. How you doing, Brennan?
I'm doing well today, and thanks for bringing me on.
Of course. I said this before we started. I was like, I wanted somebody new, and I was like, who do I know that knows this stuff more than I do? And I was like, Brennan. That's the guy. I was like, who do I not want to ever get in an argument with? Definitely Brennan.
Not when it comes to Batman, probably not.
So I was like, oh, well, of course I'll have one for the Batman show. So thank you so much for being here, man. I appreciate it.
Glad to be on.
Of course. So, like I said, we usually talk about comic books on this show, but for Batman vs. Superman, we wanted to kind of create a few different shows that talk about the particular heroes and what they mean to us and what they can do, because this is huge. This is the first time we've got them on the big screen together, in this way at least. So, here we are. So, the format that I kind of have for these now is we're going to talk about the origin of the hero, their powers and or skill sets, the notable stories, and why they would win the battle that is Batman versus Superman. And, of course, in this vein, why Batman will whoop on Superman. Because, come on. Let's think about that for a second. Josh, you're making that face like, oh, that's not true. It's very true. Don't be sad. All right, so we know that Batman has many origin stories, many origin stories. So I'm like, well, Brandon, which one is your favorite Batman origin?
Of the origin stories, certainly they always skip over, they always hit on the point of, his parents are dead about as quick as they can.
Hashtag dead parents. That's our show. Oh, boy.
So, if there's one certain in the DC and Marvel universes that, some people come back to life, Uncle Ben stays dead, Batman's parents stay dead.
That's exactly right.
Those are constants that always happen.
Mm-hmm.
Of his origin stories, I would say that my favorite series is Year One.
Okay, yeah.
As far as for just how that origin is handled. And I just love that it goes and touches on his training, following after as far as for everything he's been through from watching his parents. And I really liked watching him struggle through his first year. Not just come out of the gate just all of a sudden he's this, grizzled badass, but it's, he got shot. He wasn't wearing the right armor. He almost looked like he was in over his head and almost quit right off the start.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like how that was handled because it does still show you that he is still human, albeit that he feels that he lost a lot of his humanity from that one day, but now it's his obsession towards taking down crime and taking down the plague that has taken over Gotham is stronger than any fear, anything that ends up coming about. And I feel that that comic book really displayed that the best. I'm not sure as far as for where the movie is going to end up drawing from mostly as far as for the origin. I thought it was really interesting that they used Jeffrey Dean Morgan to play Thomas Wayne in the opening scene as far as that when he was killed, because he also plays the comedian in one of Zack Snyder's other movies as in The Watchmen. And it actually took me about the third time that I watched The Watchmen to notice that in the beginning when they're going through the opening credits, one of the scenes is outside of the theater. One of the Watchmen is actually stopping Joe Chill from shooting Batman's parents.
What?
Making sure that he never comes to be. So just watching that parallel already really had me like really excited as far as that. I knew that if Zack Snyder was going to take a hold of Batman in this light and just how dark he took the Watchmen and just made that the perfectly executed comic book movie, this one is going to be handled with such precision and care that even people with high expectations are still going to be surprised.
And that's exactly what I'm hoping for. That's exactly what I'm hoping for. But yeah, year one is actually what got me back into Batman. Because for a long time, the internet had got me kind of turned off Batman. Because, you know, there's the internet Batman, and then there's the Batman that we know, and the one that we're discussing.
Right.
And yeah, year one was the book where I was like, well, I'm going to give this a try again. And I was so glad that I did, because you're right. Like, just to watch him struggle and to see that, no, he didn't just all of a sudden, oh, my parents are dead, I'm a badass now. You know, it didn't happen like that. It was like, oh, this took work, and he put in the work. And I really appreciated that, because it gave me a connection to Bruce Wayne instead of just the Batman, you know? And that's kind of what I've always thought was important, was the parallel between the Batman and Bruce Wayne. So I really like that.
Absolutely. Year one is one of my favorite Batman stories. Period. For the same reasons that both of y'all said, it shows us a more vulnerable Bruce. It shows us a more vulnerable Batman. It's clear that a lot of Christopher Nolan's work on the Dark Knight trilogy came directly from year one. He said even that that was his number one influence on Batman Begins, which, I mean, for those exact reasons, is my favorite of the trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
I've always felt that in order to understand Batman completely, you have to understand the psychology of Bruce Wayne. And Frank Miller does such a good job at getting inside his head in year one and showing everything that he went through, that it gives you a newfound appreciation for the character mythology as a whole of Batman, behind his inception, behind his creation. And, you know, it's not, he didn't come out of the gate super OP. He didn't know what he was doing. He screwed up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And he screws up a lot in the comics too, right? He's a very vulnerable hero, but that's something that it was consistent. It almost foreshadowed that,
Yeah.
even though it came years and years and years later. You know, Frank Miller has done some incredible work on Daredevil. You know, one of my favorite runs of all time in comics was when he wrote Daredevil. So when I first started getting into comics, year one was still pretty fresh. It was maybe 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I picked it up and started reading it around 14, 15 years old. So that was really, really cool. That's how I was introduced to Batman. That was one of my very first storylines.
That's a good one.
And forever has altered. You know, now when I go back and read the old stories, that's always going to stick with me. That's the mindset I read the character with.
Wow, yeah. Jeez, yeah. So you got it at the right time.
Mm-hmm. I did. I mean, I know the internet Batman. I know the Dark Knight fanboys version of Batman, but I also know the real one. I've always been a fan of the Frank Miller one. He's a little darker, he's a little edgier. But yeah, it's been wonderful to not be like, oh, well, he's super OP and he's gonna kill everybody. Sorry, Soups. No, like I know to keep my expectations in check a lot because of this story.
Yeah, you know what to expect. So now that we've kind of got like the origin of Batman, you know, kind of like, hey, this is Batman and this is Bruce Wayne, kind of under control. Let's talk about this man's skill set. I mean, it's a laundry list. Like this is a long list of just feats. Batman is probably one of the most, and I always say this. Well, I don't always say this. Just recently started saying that Batman has to try twice as hard because he's not some alien from space. He's not some Amazonian like goddess. He's a guy in a suit, and I mean he has to try hard because that's his character. I mean he has to keep up with these guys who have been given these abilities out of this world. And so he always has to be 2 steps ahead, and that's what I appreciate about him. So Josh, what are some of the most interesting things you've seen Batman do? That you enjoy the most? Was that really all him though?
No, that's just me kind of joking around. But he is in the comics. It's established he's one of the most wealthy men on the planet.
Mhm.
The only person really who rivals him. I mean, Oliver Queen, obviously, and Lex Luthor
Yep.
are both up there. You know, all three of them incredibly rich, incredibly resourceful, and two of them use their money for good purposes.
Two.
But two out of three, it's not too
It's
bad.
not bad. Yeah.
Um, More than that, though, I think what makes Batman such an interesting character is his mind.
Yep.
I would say that's actually his greatest asset, hands down. Yes,
The
he's a
genius.
skilled martial artist, but he has to methodically think out every single thing that he does. Even when he acts in the moment, he's like it's still an in-depth plan. Bruce Wayne is not a stupid person. He spent years honing his senses, honing his mind, things like that. Um, but it goes back to something that you and I have been talking about a lot on the show, right? He still like he confines himself to Gotham for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
which I also find really intriguing. His heart clearly is with saving Gotham. As long as Gotham is okay, well, kind of screw everything else. You know, that's always going to come second to Gotham's safety.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that when he gets Mobius's chair in the Dark Side War. It's it's so fascinating that when he has the powers of a god, he still can't leave Gotham alone. He still can't entrust that to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so both of those, the skilled martial artist, of course, um, and is going back to really his brain. I mean, he this is a guy who has a contingency plan to take out any Justice League member if they go rogue.
I think
So
that's always kind of like blow my mind when people say that. I'm like, just you have to if you sit and think about that, you just sit and think about that. Everybody on the Justice League, he has a plan to deal with them if something goes awry with them. And I think about all the people that are on the Justice League and what they've done,
mhm.
and I'm like, that's crazy. Like it's like what?
Like literally, he's going up against gods.
Mhm.
This is a normal guy standing in a room with guys that are gods or have godlike powers. And he's just like, "Hey guys, where's the tea and crumpets?"
so
He's just there.
so Brennan, what are some of your favorite Batman attributes?
Actually, kind of continuing as far as for the staying with Gotham and him basically being crazy to have a contingency plan to take out every single member of the Justice League. The most fascinating thing about Batman, as far as for his mind, I'm actually going to go in the different direction, is that he is a certified crazy person. He
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
is. He watched his parents both get murdered in front of him. He, while still somehow obtaining the best education and resources over a span of 10 years, he also was sent away around the world to learn the best combat demolition techniques from the most dangerous people in the world, still hone them in a way as far as that so that he's not lethal, and confines himself as far as to Gotham City. In a way, he's no better than any of the criminals that he goes after, cripples and beats nearly to a pulp and kills them, all without killing them, just to send them to the asylum, and then they break out, and then the cycle continues all over again.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's such a thin line between him and them that you almost have to be a crazy person to have no superpowers, no intergalactic space force ring. You're not a god. You're not, as far as anything, except a person who is really rich and has enough thought in their mind to think of any possible situation that could ever end up going down. I've always looked at, as far as for Superman, that he hasn't really been explored enough.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I'm looking forward as far as in this movie is I really want to see Ben Affleck really embrace that bordering on sociopath, psychopathic kind of Batman that it's just like that the one quote that he has as far as that if there is a 1% chance that he could turn against us, we have to use it as a certainty and we have to destroy him.
Hmm.
because if he does end up going, there's absolutely no stopping him. Nobody on the planet can deal with Superman except for an alien that was just like him
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
got
that's
his
some
neck
Lex
snapped.
Luthor logic right
it
there.
really is.
It really is.
Yeah. Man, I just and to you brought that thought. Like I haven't had that thought about Batman in ages, and like yeah, to put it like
Yeah,
that,
that's a
man,
fantastic way to look at the character.
seriously, because honestly, who would think that's a good idea other than a crazy man? I'm gonna go just, I'm gonna spend a ton of money. I'm gonna make all these gadgets, and I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna fight crime at night. Oh man, yeah. And it's like, yeah, he could get shot, he could get blown up, he could get beat to death. But this is what
And
he does.
has
Yeah.
pretty close too,
Hmm.
and in some occasions has been, people thought he was dead,
Hmm.
and then all he does is heal up, think of a new plan, and then he's right back out there again.
Yeah, and it's just like it's his addiction. That's his drug. Like that's what keeps him going. And yeah, that's a really good point. And that's what makes this guy so interesting to like. I think that's what's most attractive to him for people is like this dude is messed up. First off, he's messed up, but what he does is for the benefit of the people of Gotham.
Hmm.
Uh, but I would say that he does it for himself first. Does that make sense?
Right.
He,
And
he
then,
has an insatiable need to fulfill his ego,
mhm.
or satisfy his ego, excuse me.
Well, yeah.
He's just driven to it.
Hmm.
He's a lot like Tony Stark in that regard, right? I mean, both geniuses, both billionaires, both incredibly egocentric, and they're kind of assholes.
Yeah,
But they're the asshole you like to root for.
this is true. This is very true. Well, I had another question for you guys, and this is not something that I ever really kind of get into because I haven't had much time to like dive into it more. But the Robins and the Bat family, why is that so important to him? Even after we've seen what's happened to multiple members of the Bat family and what it does to him. In addition, like what keeps him going back to having a Bat family? I mean, besides losing his own.
This is the one thing that, before even seeing the movie, Zack Snyder is already my favorite director who has ever been handed Batman, because I feel like the other directors either chose to for their own creative purposes, or they shied away from, they feared, or they just didn't understand just how important the character Robin actually is to Batman. Batman lost his parents to a random thug in an alley, and essentially he never got the chance to avenge his parents' murder. I feel like that is the one thing that's what keeps him going, is this insatiable need to avenge his parents, but he can't ever have it because he never did take down Joe Chill himself. He never did catch that criminal. For Dick Grayson, just attending a show, just being Bruce Wayne, having to do that in the public eye, and attending Haley Circus, he saw Tony Zuko's and the Gotham mob take out his family right there during a show. To keep Dick Grayson from becoming him, this person who insatiably chased this vengeance instead of justice, he was able to help Dick Grayson avenge his parents' murders. And in doing that, he also crafted the perfect sidekick and the one perfect person to take the mantle of Batman should he ever fall.
Hmm.
Because of anyone, Dick Grayson is the perfect person who he has the one mental advantage over Batman, and that's the one thing that keeps him able to actually maintain his humanity. And in keeping the others there off the streets because of losing their parents, losing their, livelihood and lives to the horrors and the darkness of Gotham, the whole reason that he keeps keeping these Robins is because he has some connection that they are somehow just like him. They were orphaned by the plague, by the sickness of Gotham, and he doesn't want anyone else to go through as far as for what they did. The only problem was is that all the Robins were always different.
Hmm.
Dick Grayson just ended up being the most perfect one, but then he didn't want to be in Batman's shadow, so he broke out and did things on his own. Jason, who personally I think that's whose suit we see in the glass case that is defaced and vandalized
Yes.
in
Absolutely,
Batman versus
without a doubt.
Superman.
Yeah, I've done a lot of
I
reading.
think it's Jason Todd.
Mhm.
Now, where that story is going to go, what we end up getting there out of that, probably more so in another episode or something there else. I personally don't think that the theory that this current Joker is Jason Todd, I don't think that theory is that crazy. Actually, I think it actually makes more sense that he actually is Jason Todd, if anything else. He looks built like he's physically equipped to deal in a fist fight with Batman. He looks broken, damaged, not because as far as for just becoming the Joker. That's not enough. It's not enough as far as to put Batman in this mindset of this angry, this broken, unless something this permanently mentally damaging happened to him. Killing Robin would be one thing as far as a deal with Batman, but I think physically breaking him and taking one of his allies from him forever and turning him against him would be the ultimate middle finger to Batman for the rest of his life, for the rest of his legacy. To turn his ally against him, I think would be much more damaging. If that's what's going to happen, I don't know. We shall see. But the fact that Snyder is the first one to actually embrace Robins, after losing his parents, having a Robin, I feel is the second most important factor as far as for Batman. And I'm glad that fans are finally getting to see this. And you get to see just how personal it is as far as this is the real driving factor behind what makes Bruce Wayne put the suit back on to take down this super alien threat.
Time and time again.
God, that's a really good point. Josh, you wanted to chime in on something at that point, didn't you?
I mean, no, I'm largely agreeing with that. I think go ahead.
I love that. Like yeah. Brennan, you just now made me more excited for the solo Batman film and anything to come afterwards than anything else has been able to do on the internet so far.
Well, I mean, we've been excited for the solo Batman film for quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff Johns and Ben Affleck helming it up. There's no reason not to be excited about that.
Oh, yes.
I know Ray and I are both at the mindset that they're going to adapt parts of the Killing Joke for it. In this universe, I personally think that Batman versus Superman takes place post Killing Joke. If that really is Jason Todd's suit, like all three of us think, I think that's logical. I haven't quite jumped on the train of he's the Joker yet, but your argument is really convincing.
It really is.
Especially to someone who does not at all like the look of where Suicide Squad is going. That actually has me kind of intrigued in it now.
I don't know how you did that, Brennan. Like, seriously, you just made me so interested. Like, seriously, you made me interested in the Suicide Squad, too.
Anytime that I have doubts about something now, I'm going to come talk to you because you're going to get me interested. No, getting kind of serious again. The relationship that Batman has with Dick Grayson is, I mean, it's a closer bond than he has with even Damian. Dick Grayson really is Bruce Wayne's son in a lot of ways. And that the relationship they have, when you say that he's the perfect one to take up the mantle of Batman, should Bruce ever fall, I mean, that's completely true. I couldn't see, no offense, I love Jason Todd. Jason Todd is not Batman, though. Jason Todd would not be Batman material. Right. Dick, even though he's damaged, he still, like, everyone else is here, he's up here. Arguably the only other person on his level who are even close to it is Barbara Gordon. Is Batgirl and then later on Oracle. That's the only person I could even put in that category, but even that is different. Even Oracle is different. She still has, Jim is still around for her. And that's another entirely, that ties in with Jason Todd, both very hard to talk about. But absolutely, the relationship, it's a father and his children. and that's what I like so much. No one else has really been able to adapt that for the screen. Largely because of the creative differences. They tried to Batman and Robin.
No.
Yeah, Chris O'Donnell and George Clooney were not the guys to do that. Dick Grayson is
No.
quite literally a boy when Batman takes him in. He's not a 25-year-old NCIS dropout.
See, I have stuff.
Um, and then we never could have had Robin or Batgirl in the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight universe. It just would not have worked. Not with that incarnation of the Joker, Scarecrow, uh, or Bane. There's just no way. Shoehorning Joseph Gordon-Levitt in with his real name as Robin doesn't count either.
That was the biggest tease.
I wouldn't even call that a tease. I would call that complete,
Bullshit.
total, utter disrespect to fans.
I would say that too. Yeah.
He did that because he did not want to include Robin. He wanted nothing to do as far as for that part of the Batman, and he was more trying to force his point on people rather than embracing the story and the background as far as for the character. I do like, as far as like that you all had said, that Snyder is definitely presenting his Batman post-Killing Joke, post-Death in the Family. So we are getting a very, very damaged and angry Batman in this movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right, and that's why I think Ben Affleck has the potential to be the best one. I've said it a lot, the Christopher Nolan films were more about Bruce Wayne and his reluctance to be a hero than it was about an actual Batman story. And I think that's a lot of why we don't see the Bat family in it. When I look at it that way, I love Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne. I didn't love him as Batman, even though I think he's a good Batman. He's definitely the best we'd had since Michael Keaton. That's not exactly a tall order, though.
No, it's not.
I enjoyed him as Batman. That's the Batman I grew up seeing on screen. I enjoy him. The Dark Knight, one of the iconic movies of our generation. But Ben Affleck has the potential to embody not only the best Batman we've seen, but also the best Bruce Wayne. He has that anger and that ferocity that he's already bringing out in his character. And we've said it before. We're going to keep coming back to that line. If there's the 1% line, just enunciates it for me when he's saying that to Jeremy Irons. It's like, wow, like this is the Bruce I've always wanted. You can do Bruce Wayne and Batman, but it really takes that supporting cast of the Justice League to bring it all out, to bring the character full circle.
Man, that gets the more and more we talk about this, I'm ready for it to be the 23rd.
Is it only 13 days away now?
Yeah, something like that. Goodness gracious.
It's less if you went to go watch the trailer in IMAX last year.
God. Yeah, that's right. Adam Wells, he went to see the trailer just because, and they sent him his free tickets, so he gets pre-screening. It's like, oh man, I'm actually really jealous.
Yeah, part of me kind of wishes I would have gone, but then I was like, no, never mind. I was not going to drive 25 minutes to go watch a trailer.
Well, now you should have.
Yeah, now I regret it, kind of.
Oh, that was really good, guys. Thank you. That has me really excited for more Batman. Seriously, give me more of that. So now we get to our final question, and this one will be fun. So I want to know, and I want to hear from Brennan first. Why would Batman beat Superman in a fight?
I can't help but, as far as I have to draw this from just complete logic from what I've just been able to bring up as far as for this movie to why it's going to make sense as far as the happening. It goes back as far as that this Batman is he's obsessed, he's angry, he has a lot of demons and unresolved issues as far as to attack. Superman killed hundreds of his employees inadvertently, albeit, but he killed hundreds of people in the Wayne Tower building in Metropolis. And from what I think is how this is going to work, and I kind of got the idea that when Superman was on the Black Zero ship, just being on the ship had the kryptonite effect.
Hmm.
And it was just being around Zod's armor and things that were native Kryptonian weakened him. And then when they used the world machine during the Black Zero event, it started terraforming the planet. What happens when you terraform a planet to be Krypton? You start turning Earth's natural materials into kryptonite.
Holy shit.
All the wreckage of the broken ship, which also made Superman weak, excuse me, it was salvaged by one of two people or both. One we know is Lex Luthor. That's a given. That's
Mhm.
Lex Luthor
An
has
idiot if you don't believe
this
that.
exactly. He has the same contingency plan as Batman, but his contingency plan is not to just take Superman out or take him down. It's erase him, eliminate him, kill him. He's an alien. He should not be God's gift to man, not being man as he sees it. Batman is going to be able to beat Superman in this movie, and I'm sure as far as anyone as far as listening to this saw that he ends up blocking one of Superman's punches, and even Superman can't believe it. He has
The face
no
he made.
idea. Like, you see his face, he's like,
Mhm.
oh shit. Like he's getting ready to get wrecked at that point. And this is the crazy obsessed person that Batman is. If there is a way to beat you, he's going to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
It may take time. It may take a lot of preparation. It may take trial, error, and failure. It may take sneaking into somebody else's buildings, stealing their plans, and stealing all the schematics and all the research that they have done on you.
Which he's done that a few times.
But he is going to find a way, and he is going to be the one to beat you. Now, is that going to be very wise as far as if he ends up doing that, as far as, what clearly seems to be these other threats that, just start popping up one after the other? I don't know. I don't even know as far as what point the fight and everything will end up happening. But the reason that Batman's going to end up beating him is because he's going to have the resources. He's going to have the armor. He's going to have some form or something there as far as for the kryptonite. And this is all things considered, this is a very green Superman.
Mm-hmm.
He just decided to be Superman. This movie is going to pick up literally at the same time that Superman just began being a hero. He just put on the suit and had the battle with the Kryptonians and with Zod. He's immediately going to jump from, frying pan right into the fire, right into this fight with somebody who has been a combat expert, trained for over 10 years as far as in every form of martial arts.
What is it, like
who's
127 martial arts?
beating on criminals probably for the good part of the last 20 years. This is an older, as Zack Snyder described him, grizzled, battle-hardened, and weary Batman. And now he's mad again because people, as far as he considers his family, his employees, are dead because of you.
Rip.
Yep.
Superman has the superpowers, but Batman has age, experience, wisdom, and the passion to actually beat you all on his side.
Mm-hmm.
Superman's walking to a fight that he has no idea what he's getting into. And powers alone are not going to be enough.
Right, and that's why I feel like he underestimates the hell out of Batman. Like because he's like, you're just a dude. What are you gonna do? And like you said, Batman has the resources, and I've said it before, he has everything to lose and everything to gain at the same time by taking this guy down.
That makes you extremely dangerous. And going back to the arrogance there, you're absolutely right with the stay down. If I wanted it, you'd be dead already.
Mm-hmm.
That already approaching the beginning of a fight like that shows me that you have not done your research on your combatant that you're going against, and it's going to cost him.
Oh yeah, well, we got a piece of it. We got to see his face when he blocked that punch. His face it's perfect, and those memes. In that moment, he knew he fucked up.
That's exactly what that face says.
That's a face of regret.
Yep, instant regret. His whole life flashed before his eyes. All of his mistakes. Oh man, that's great. Josh, what do you think?
Um, I mean, realistically, the way that Batman wins is going to be with his mind,
Hmm.
like Brennan was saying. It's there's no contest there because Batman can't beat Superman physically. The only way he blocked that punch was because for some reason that suit is stronger than a Hulkbuster, and it's tinier.
Hmm.
But that's the only way he wins is with his mind. Batman knows he's not going to win in a direct one-on-one confrontation. Without that suit, he is dead. Like
Hmm.
he will die instantly. But he uses his resources, he utilizes them, and that's how he's going to come out on top. That's how he's always come out on top in grudge matches with anybody. He beats these gods as a mortal man, and I think Batman is going to use his arrogance to his advantage and use that to kind of fuel him because he's been doing this for 20 something years. He's really pissed off. Um, he's not going to go down easily. He's not just going to step aside and be like, "Oh yes, Mr. Alien Man, please control my planet. Please be worshipped as a god." No, he's going to kill you and then gloat about it to the women at the bar. He's gonna kill you and then use it to woo Diana. Okay, that's what he wants. But it's gonna be fascinating to see exactly how far he has to go in his thinking. We already know, Superman, just demolishes the Batmobile in one hit. But that scene where Batman just stands up and looks him straight in the eyes, stepping out of the Batmobile, and just like, Superman's going down.
Oh, and that's why
Not just because the writers are going to dictate it, but because it's meant to be.
well, and that's how I know that man is crazy. That man is nuts.
He stares at alien who has heat vision straight in the eye.
Right in the eyes, and it's crazy because it's like your Batmobile just literally bounced off of him. It wasn't like no, you like missed. No, it bounced off of him. And that's I'm like, yeah, this guy's cool. But it's gonna be so worth it. I'm so excited.
Oh.
Oh man, but I lied. That was not the last topic. I skipped one. Surprise. Um, so I skipped probably the most important one actually, and is the most notable Batman stories. I want to hear from you guys the most noteworthy and or your favorite Batman stories. I know we touched on a few of them earlier, but what do you think? We'll start with Brendan.
Just going towards what the ones that I think are the most notable and my
Hmm.
favorite, or the ones that I think that should be most notable going into this movie.
How about you combine those?
Okay. Going into this movie, the most notable ones that you're going to need to know are World's Finest,
Hmm.
The Killing Joke, Death in the Family. It's probably not going to be very heavily touched on in this movie, but Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on a Serious Hill, to get this psychology as far as just why criminals and people, and even you can see it reaches the people of Metropolis, just exactly why they're afraid of Batman.
Hmm.
This guy's reputation as a brutal psychopath reaches way outside of Gotham. You're going to see just how much of a force to be reckoned with that he actually is. As far as for my personal favorite Batman stories, that I think that hopefully as far as for solo Batman movies and for the upcoming Justice League movies, the ones that you have to know, and just if you want to be as much as a fan as I am, that you absolutely have to go and read. Number one, it's right from the beginning. Detective Comics number 27,
Mm.
the very, very first one from the 40s, and then you have to go and read the New 52 reboot, which the special edition overlayered the new panels with the original 40s comic in just a way that it was just so perfectly executed as far as it shows exactly where this picture came from, what it is, and it's the very first Batman story, so you have to read it.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely number one. The second I would say that you would have to read is Justice League Tower of Babel. Or if you want to just do a shortcut, you can just watch the Justice League movie Doom. What it is, it's the Batman contingency take down the entire Justice League movie. And just how wrong that goes when it's compromised, when villains basically get inside of Batman's head and they use his contingency plans to take down the members of the Justice League. Only thing is that they put a lethal twist on everything that Batman does to take them all down, and it nearly results in the entire Justice League being killed by Batman, essentially.
Wow, so that's the Babel storyline. I did not know that.
It's called Justice League Tower of Babel. If you want to know as far as exactly where that one comes from, that's the one to pursue.
Well, I will be looking that one up.
Just my personal favorites, just running them off real quick, which, I mean, any Batman fan, you hear the title of it, you know why I like it so much. Under the Red Hood, Hush, Death of the Family, not the same as far as for Death in the Family, but the storyline Death of the Family is one of my favorite because it's Batman's arrogance and obsession actually turned against him and against his own family. As far as for some of the other favorite ones, I picked up a couple as far as just to kind of get through like the storylines, like the as far as for Batman Beyond. And again, as far as for shortcuts and everything, I absolutely advocate watch the animated features, watch the animated series as far as for Batman, which is coming out on Blu-ray later this year.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ever want to see as far as where I started watching Batman and why he's one of my favorite characters, it's now going to be in 1080p and going to be high definition with the absolute best picture and sound quality ever. So, if you want a real reason as far as for why people started liking him when I was growing up, rather than just the Christopher Nolan movies, go ahead and start back there. Batman Beyond, the Justice League animated series. And then at the end of the Justice League Unlimited, how it ties back to Batman Beyond and the original Bruce Wayne story is one of my absolute all-time favorite cartoons of any cartoon across any medium. Just how it all just came steaming ahead. It all went back to a beginning. Just absolutely blew my mind. Wow. And also going back as far as for probably one of my underrated top 3 favorite Batman stories, also kind of goes back to as far as for why I actually think that Jason Todd might actually be the Joker. The Batman animated movie, Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker.
Yes.
Yep. And if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil for you. Just going back as far as for watching that one, there is cause for a reason that story, that theory is not that crazy.
That was way darker than any children's movie ever had a right to be.
Seriously?
It absolutely was.
It was rated R originally.
Was it really?
It was.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's PG-13, I believe.
Holy crap! But that movie is one of my favorites, like of all time. Especially in the animated universe, like it's so good. It's so good.
Oh geez, that Mask of the Phantasm too. Literally, you could just do an episode of all of the favorite Batman animated features that you must see.
Yeah, there's so many. Oh man, and they're all really good. Like that vein, they just had nailed down. This animated Batman was the place to be. So good, man. So is that all your picks there, Brennan?
Oh no, absolutely not. But I'm not going to take any more time.
All right, Josh, what about you?
The obvious place for me to start with my picks is the alternate reality story. The Dark Knight Returns and The Dark Knight Strikes Again. I've made no secret about it since we started the show last year. That is my all-time favorite story in all of comics. It showed a very different Batman to us. And then, of course, that's one of the inspirations for his fight with Superman comes from that graphic novel. That's one of the iconic parts of it. it very much deals with the older grizzled Batman. It's a defeat. He's a defeated man. Um, I'll leave my resentment for Dark Knight 3 at the door, but the first two in tandem are some of my favorite stories ever. I think they're one of the Frank Miller, just a masterful job with getting into that character. That's why, year one I read right after that was so good. This was actually one of my very first Batman stories I read, just because I remember hearing about it when I was growing up. The Dark Knight Returns over and over again when I asked for a place to get started on comics. And I was actually told this at my comic shop one day. There was a guy there who works there. And he goes, if you read that and you do not get interested in reading absolutely everything about Batman, something is wrong with you. Um, other notable places, Brennan touched on a couple of these. I had to step out of the room really fast. Batman Hush is a phenomenal story. Um, some of the core Batman stories that I would say people need to, if you just really want to get inside the characterization, not only of Batman, but of some of his most notable foes. The Killing Joke, obviously, going to be very important going forward in the DC universe. The Long Halloween is another one that comes to mind. If you don't know, that was the inspiration for Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight. That was very much an influence dealing with Two-Face and with the Joker. Um, Another one that I like, I love Scott Snyder's run on Batman. Very recent run. The Court of Owls is a very, very, very well done
That's
story.
one of
Yes,
mine.
it
That is
is.
definitely one of mine. Yep.
Yeah, Court of Owls is what got me into reading Scott Snyder's Batman, actually. I hadn't been picking it up, and then that's why it became the only DC book I was reading for a long time. The Court of Owls.
It was the only one worth reading.
And of course, they did not Death of the Family, Death in the Family, with Scott Snyder's run. I believe that's what the story arc was called, Death in the Family. I haven't read it
I
in a
think
long
that's
time.
in that Death of the Snyder's.
Death in the Family is the original where Jason Todd is killed.
Okay.
Death of the Family is the Joker systematically taking down every single one in the Bat family and then ultimately leaving everyone against
It's
Batman.
It's a very, very bizarre story, but man, if you want a phenomenal Joker tale, that's where both of those is where you go. They're just they're great. They're great for understanding the character. Outside of that, I really don't have a ton of recommendations. I mean, Batman's had so many good stories throughout the years. We could literally do a whole series of shows just on what you should be reading for him.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Um,
one story each would be an episode.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
I can't really touch to a lot of the Justice League. I haven't dove into a lot. Delved into a bunch of the Justice League comics, um, really. But it's all about the solo stories. And Nightfall's another one that has always stuck with me. The first appearance of Bane.
The
Bane in
first definitive defeat of Batman, too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bane shows up, immediately wrecks him, breaks his back. The image on the front is him breaking Batman's back. We were so excited to see that in The Dark Knight Rises, and that arguably did or did not work effectively, depending on. Oh my God, you just did it instead of
It
me.
it definitely took away from the significance of that moment. Um, the true significance of that moment of Batman getting his back broken and he was defeated. Back in the 90s, that moment was going to be the end of Bruce Wayne as Batman. They were really going to move forward as far as John Paul Valley to be, this is the not even just the new age, but this is the new Batman, that he was going to continue being this violent murdering criminals. It was the extreme way of the 90s moving forward. But the whole significance as far as that moment, for whatever reason that you take it for, it was watered down by many other things as far as the movie, with a lot of things that bothered people that not only were
Right. Right.
hardcore Batman fans, but also movie critics, as far as plot holes and things that didn't make sense. I know that Nolan had to redo a lot of things because there were a lot of parts in the movie that I could just tell were actually written for the Joker, and for not recasting him just out of respect, they had to rewrite parts of the movie.
Great decision, by the way.
If they just didn't make sense, they didn't make sense. Whatever. People were going to see the movie anyway. And it does take away from the significance of just what kind of villain that Bane was.
Yeah, but Bane is legitimately one of Batman's most terrifying foes
Mm-hmm.
because he can physically best Batman. A guy like the Joker can't. The Joker has to outwit him with his mind. The Riddler also, and so many of these other villains. You're not going to see Penguin go toe to toe with Batman,
No, please
No.
don't ever do
but
that.
Bane was so different with that brute force. So really, really, really recommend Nightfall. That it was a year or two story arc in the comics. It was a huge, significant event. That was the definitive '90s story for Batman. The image of Bane breaking Batman's back is still one of the most iconic images of Batman because it shows his complete and utter defeat
In his
physically.
own home.
Yeah, in his own home. He was broken both mentally and physically from that, and I don't know. It's just like I said, we can go on all night. I'm not gonna throw out another pick. It's if you see something that looks remotely interesting that's Batman, just pick it up. There's
Mhm.
so much out there that we can sit here and debate this all day.
This is true. This is very true.
Ray, what are your picks?
Well, I mean, we've kind of touched on most of it. I guess the one that I wanted to mention that we hadn't really talked about, and I know it wasn't like super well received among the hardcore, but Batman Earth One, um,
Hmm.
I liked it. I liked it because it was one of the most different takes on the Batman origin story that I had read
Yeah,
in a
we like
long
a lot of the
time.
Earth One
Right.
stories. We talked about
Um,
Superman Earth One.
Earth
talking about
1 is
Superman one.
fantastic.
But I
Hmm.
think that everybody should read it. I think it's great. One Earth One and Earth Two, pretty much. I think those are great. Um, and we all know that for a long time I wasn't a really big Batman fan, but it's books like that just help me reconnect with this character because there's so much there and it's great. I love it. Um, we have talked about the Court of Owls earlier. I really, really, really enjoyed that book. It is so good. It's beautifully drawn, and it takes for me. It took the right notes from like year one and kind of blended those in really nicely too. And I really like that Batman. It's a good Batman. Um, and then a third one that's not necessarily a book, but a video game, the Arkham series. I really, really enjoy those games and the story that they tell. It's some really good Batman stuff there.
The story is probably among one of my favorite stories of any medium of
Hmm.
Batman. Just the Arkham Batman storyline is absolutely fantastic, and I do
It's
like where it came to a
great.
head.
I love it. Like it's so good, and it's so
Personally, I
much fun
felt
to
Arkham
play.
Knight faltered a little bit towards the end. It was kind of like, okay,
I think that was more so
okay.
the game than it was the
Yeah,
story.
this Arkham City, though, time to time, is one of the greatest games, not
Hmm.
just last generation, but one of my favorite of all time. Arkham Asylum was good. City was perfection.
It was. It was my favorite
In
Batman
terms of
experience.
plotline controls everything. But Ray, you and I share the opinion that these games are really strongly influencing the Batman that we're about to see on screen.
I really hope so. Yes. Like he's savage and like just his attacks. They're so like so strong and just like they don't. He
The
doesn't care
fear
what he do to you.
takedown itself.
Exactly. The
Combo
fear takedown
move.
shows up in this movie, and I'm like,
Oh, dude,
that's.
I will jump up and start applauding.
I was like, this is my Arkham Knight Batman. He is so
I will do the
savage.
Leo
It
from
really
Wolf of
is.
Wall Street.
And I mean, not even that. It's just the Batmobile too. I feel like it'll be very important as well. I mean, it's always been very important, but we know how important it was in the games later on. So yeah, I'm really excited to see that because, like I said, Arkham Knight Batman beats the crap out of people, and they're like broken bodies just laying around, and that's what I feel like we're gonna see with this Batman versus Superman Batman. I really hope so.
That's the only Batman that's going to live against soups.
That's true. This is true. Well,
He
I guess
deserves one because this is also the first time that we get a Batman who actually has a gray suit
this is true.
on screen. I couldn't be happier about that one decision alone.
Yeah.
This is very true. So guys, we're gonna be getting the truest Batman we've had in Hollywood ever. So,
I really, really hope that it turns out as good as it has the potential to be.
mhm.
I've learned not to overhype things, and well, I've been kind of sour on it, especially after the Doomsday fiasco. I've been really soured on a lot of things that have happened with the DCCU, but I've been very, very excited for Batman versus Superman for a long time now. It's the first time we're ever getting them on screen together. You throw Wonder Woman in, you throw an Aquaman in, you got Lex there, Jeremy Irons is Alfred, and the recipe is there for a classic. Just please execute it properly.
The
That
Flash
is
is
my
going to be there too.
plea. Warner Brothers, please execute. There's a reason why you delayed this for 9 months and did not put it out last summer. Show us why that was.
I'm ready for it.
I'm ready. 13 days.
Oh
13
boy.
days.
All right. Well, with that, we're gonna wrap up this special, fantastic episode of Neek the Poolist podcast about Batman. Thank you so much, Brendan, for being here. I really appreciate you and your insight, and I would love to have you back soon.
You are an
Anytime.
endless reservoir of knowledge. I feel like I didn't have to talk because you were echoing so many of my thoughts. I'm like, God dang it, that's something I wanted to say.
It's probably not surprising to either of you that, I mean, it's something that I like so much that I even have my own ideas for my own Batman story that
Oh,
I
I
would
believe
come
it.
up with.
I believe
So
it.
it's one day it'll be something that I pursue.
Yeah. Well, hey, Brendan, is there anywhere online that you want people to come seek you out and kind of start this conversation with you? You got a Twitter handle that you'd like to throw out there?
It's just any handle on any medium, whether it's PlayStation, Facebook, Instagram. If you just look up BMan32X, that's me.
All right, that's the man. You heard him. Well, again, thank you guys so much, Josh, Brennan. It's been a pleasure. This episode was phenomenal. All right, Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice is out soon. Go see those movies, and we'll be ready to talk about them when they come out.
We've
Don't
got
forget.
we got one more planned, but we're gonna do it after the movie, I
Yes,
believe.
there's one after the movie, and I'm not going to tell you until it's time because we're going to be so excited and so hyped up. It's going to be even better. Trust me. All right, folks. Well, you guys have a great night. Don't forget, keep those pool lists full. We'll see you next time.